Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Cast Without Fear. I am your host, Kurt Schmidt, and this is my partner in crime,
Hey.
Ryan Frecceri. You might know Ryan from popular podcasts such as.
Oh, Talkin Snikt, the Wolverine show. It's a podcast all about Wolverine. He's the best there is at what he does.
Yes, but he is not the man without fear, and that is Daredevil. And here we come. We did not rehearse anything, even though this is our second take at doing this, uh, because your host here is not a professional. Um, so we won't talk about that. That's it. That's all we're going to get with that. So what you have here is two guys who love Daredevil, um, think he's the best character Marvel has, and we plan on going through the comic series from issue number 1. And I should know the date. This is our podcast, right? 64, 60 something. But we plan on reading it straight through from issue 1 all the way up to Charles Soule. I don't plan on going past Charles Soule. Maybe Ryan does, not me.
We'll see.
That's yeah, we'll see.
It
We'll see how far we can
it
get.
take years just to get there, so
I think I'd be happy if we hit if we hit Ann Nesenti or Miller. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, we have lofty things ahead of us. A lot of what we'll see a lot of creators on this book, man. And we'll see a lot of creators between this episode and our next episode. We'll, we'll see more than I think any other Marvel book in this time frame.
Yeah, I think so. It seems that in the first 10 issues alone, there was, what, 4 artists that cycled in and out, I think, something like that. 3 or 4.
Yeah,
At least 3. Pretty sure we got to 4, but I could be
yeah,
misremembering. But yeah,
yeah.
quite a few.
At least, yeah. Quite a few artists for sure. Couple costume changes too. Yeah, we got a lot. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though. What um so I'm why don't we talk about our fandom, how it started, huh? Uh I guess I'll lead off. My fandom started. I think I'd right here. Marvel Knights sketchbook, man.
Oh wow.
This is what started it off for me. Um, I was at that time I was in high school, freshman, sophomore year, probably freshman year when it's being announced. Um, and I was a big Kevin Smith fan. I never liked Daredevil. Never. I always thought he was I don't know, kind of a dumb character. As a kid, he had no appeal to me. He's like a blind guy that kind of swings around, kind of like a nonsense Spider-Man, right? Um, but Kevin Smith is gonna write them. They're gonna restart it with the creators of Ash. Like they got a couple of hot artists, or well, the artist and inker, and Kevin Smith. Like, how can you go wrong? Um, this is like right at the start. Like I don't know. I think this is maybe just after Heroes Reborn. Like they weren't doing relaunching books or anything. Like they stopped at like 364 or something like that, 365, I think. Like this is like a fresh take, man. It was huge. I was on board for all the Marvel Knights stuff. Um, and this is like the biggest thing for me. I bought this first issue and I was at the shop every week waiting for it. Like it was great. I loved it. It only got better after that, and then maybe sometime during Bendis, probably maybe just before Bendis, I started going back and buying stuff from the quarter bins, filling out my collection to the point to where I had Up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I had a complete run from number 1 or -1. I think there's there's a -1 from -1 till Charles Soule. I had a complete run. I've since
Wow.
sold off a couple, but it's nearly complete. Still, it's I probably got 95% complete. Uh, and I plan on bringing those out and going through them during this podcast. I'd like to incorporate flipping through the issues as we go. That's my goal. Here's my awesome copy signed by Kevin Smith. He's got a big word balloon. Oh, there you go. You can see it. Kurt right there. He's screaming it out.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a fun story there too. Maybe one day we'll get to that story. But yeah, I love the character, man. I've read all of his stuff, the movies, the TV show. Uh, he's the best. It took Kevin Smith to get me to come around and realize that Matt Murdock, not so much as Daredevil, but Matt Murdock is I think the best character in comics.
Wow. That's a bold statement.
Man, there is they talk about the flawed Marvel characters and stuff. I I think they hit it out of the park with Matt, man. I don't think anyone is as flawed or as more perfectly human as he is. I don't know, man. He's maybe I'm just as psychotic as Matt.
I think I would agree with for sure. Like, he's had a bad crappy thing. Yeah, no, I think I agree with you there. Matt Murdock for sure is like the most flawed. Yeah, most perfectly human. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Like he has more flaws than virtues. I think even as a character, like there's more reasons to root against him as a hero than there are to root for him. But it's just that fierce determination that he has, that just that drive to just keep being the best person that he can be in spite of his uncountable flaws. That you can't help but rooting for him, even though you're like this. Everything is stacked against this guy. He's not worth it, but he is.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your introduction to the character?
So similar to yours, I think the first time I really ever took notice of the character, at least, was that Marvel Knights run. I wasn't there for like the announcement. I don't even think I was a Kevin Smith guy quite yet. It would have been announced sometime between like 97 and 99, I think. Because the book, it was like 99 or 2000 when Guardian Devil, when the Marvel Knights imprint launched, was like 99 or 2000. So somewhere around there, maybe 98. But
Okay.
I don't think Kevin Smith was really on my radar. I'm a couple years younger than you, so I wasn't quite in high school yet. I don't think I discovered Clerks or Mallrats or Dogma. Like I didn't see Dogma for the first time until it had been on VHS for a couple years, and like at Blockbuster, they have the like the 99-cent rentals. And a buddy of mine's like, "Oh, we should rent this. I heard it's really funny." And like that was kind of what started my Kevin Smith fandom. So the announcement of like Kevin Smith on Daredevil wasn't really anything that resonated with me. It wasn't until a couple years later that same friend who I was hanging out with, who's like, "Hey, we should rent Dogma." He's like, "Hey, you should read these issues of the Daredevil Marvel Knights series. It's written by that Dogma dude." And reading it, being like, "Oh wow, this character is fantastic. This is a great story." Um, I had known about the character for a long time before that, going all the way back to like the Marvel Masterpieces trading cards from the early '90s. I want to say like '93, I think maybe was that first set where Joe Jusko had done all the paintings for
Yeah.
each of the cards. And there was that Daredevil card where he's just like standing there on the roof. I think it's snowing. It's just a fantastic piece. And I remember that was one of the cards that I had, and so I always kind of liked Daredevil. I remember the Daredevil episodes of the Amazing Spider-Man not the Amazing Spider-Man, but the '90s Spider-Man cartoon that was on Fox along with the X-Men animated series. Because I've always been a big X-Men guy. That's kind of always been my driving fandom of Marvel. But when the Spider-Man cartoon dropped in the '90s, I became a big Spider-Man fanboy. And so, like, my first real introduction to Daredevil as a character were in the 2 episodes of the Spider-Man cartoon that he was on. So I always liked the character. I just wasn't like, I wouldn't have said that I was like a fan of the character. Like, he's not someone I went out of my way to read or anything like that. So the first time I read him was the Guardian Devil arc, and I just thought it was awesome. But even after that, like, I didn't stay as a huge collector. I started collecting it years later in trades, where I went back and I collected the trade paperback of Guardian Devil, and then from there, like, trades of the Bendis run, and then eventually, yeah, boom, there you go. Look at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I've always known about his existence and all that, but he hadn't really become a big character where I was a big fan, until like the trade era, where you go to a bookstore and pick up, 3 trades for $15 or whatever, even though the cover price was $12.99, whatever. They have sales all the time. Barnes and Noble, and we had another local bookstore. I think it was nationwide. It was called Borders. Went out of
Oh
business
yeah.
a long time ago, at least in Colorado. I don't know
Yeah.
about the rest of the country, but I would spend a lot of time, a lot of evenings spent at like Barnes and Noble or Borders, like, just reading everything they had on the shelf, and then, so I wouldn't feel guilty, I'd buy like one trade as on my way out the door or whatever. I didn't want to take advantage, but yeah, I read a lot of the Daredevil trades, and so, like, that was when I read the Frank Miller stuff for the first time, was trades at one of those bookstores. And yeah, I've always liked the character since, and I've kind of been looking for an excuse to go back and read his entire run, uh, looking at it through like a more academic lens, because I've read most of it, but not all. And there's certainly big stretches of '60s and '70s and even '80s DD that I've not even ever cracked open. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it too, because I've read it. Um, as weird as it never like continuous. Like, I'd read stuff as I bought it and like read like a chunk here, a chunk there, but never like what we're planning on doing. Um, that I just you say that card, I forgot about that card, and I just happened to have it right there within arm's reach. It's a little strange there. Flipping through and trying to find it though, I found one that I didn't know was Daredevil related until much later on, but this was like the hottest card. Do you ever remember seeing that one? Typhoid Mary?
Ooh, yeah, is that looks like one of the Hildebrandt
Yes.
brothers?
Yeah.
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 All right.
Oh man, I remember being an adolescent boy, and man, that girl, that's got some like Claremont inspiration right there, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, she looks like she could be a member of the Hellfire Club inner circle wearing that
Yeah.
getup.
Yeah, for sure. So for those of you just listening, you'll have to either check us out on YouTube or Google like the Hildebrandt Marvel Masterpiece Typhoid Mary card. It's worth the effort. And as you were talking, I pulled my copy out. It was November of '98 was the cover date for the Daredevil, the Smith, the Marvel Knights Daredevil #1, and just to show the date of it, the age, the Got Milk ad of Sarah Michelle on the back, man. There's Buffy right there. I another favorite of mine, man. I love her. Her.
1998, was Buffy even out yet, or was she still going off of her like Cruel Intentions clout there?
Oh, it's got to be Buffy.
Yeah, yeah. I think that my sister watched that when she was in high school, and she graduated like in the mid '90s.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's got to be Buffy. First couple seasons at least, I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Very cool. So, yeah. So like, I got we covered our goals are to get as far as possible, which I think it's going to be. I think realistically, it's going to be a little rough. We'll hit some patches. I think there's enough mini series or something to kind of liven things up.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll look for. I love top fives. I love listening to top fives. I love participating in top fives. So I imagine maybe probably not the second episode because um, we got to get our feet under us, right? Our legs under us, if you will. Um, so maybe the third, fourth. If anybody's got any suggestions, anybody out there, that would be great. Uh, yeah, man. What do you for this one? We were talking. We'll jump right in, and I think we'll do the first issue. Run through the first one, give you a taste of what we got planned for this cast, and yeah. What do you say? You wanna start us off?
Sure. Yeah. So for the first issue, Marvel Unlimited, so I've got my iPad here in front of me, and I'm kind of scrolling through and all that. Um, but yeah, we've got. I like already they're not quite confident in their titular hero. So even though it's here comes Daredevil, the man without fear, number one, the very first thing it says is like, hey, remember that Spider-Man fella? Like Daredevil's just
Yeah.
as cool. So please buy this. Please buy this one. It's a lot like Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and all that. And then there's a little hint on here that says, can you guess why Daredevil is different from all other crime fighters? And yeah, we turn the page where we've got this great splash page of the terrible yellow and red suited Daredevil just flying through the sky, leaping through the sky. And we get written by Stan Lee, illustrated by Bill Everett, letters from Sam Rosen. And I always like checking out these credits. I think the first time we tried recording this, we had you had a couple interesting things to say about Bill Everett. Now, I remember my contribution was I think his artwork's fantastic. I wonder why he didn't draw any more issues after this. And you're like, well, here's what I've heard.
And since then, one good thing, one positive thing to come from this, I think I have other like other information has come to light. Uh,
Mm.
so in the first podcast, I said that from everything that I've heard, and it was that Bill Everett was a drunk, and he couldn't get his work in on time, and I think that's lore, whatever you want to say. Um, that led to the printing of Avengers #1, because back then they had to have the printing dates set in stone, and when Daredevil was late, they had to produce something, and that's where you got Avengers, right? Um, but then Everett was late, and he couldn't go past issue 1. I always thought because of the alcohol. Um, but recently, and I don't know, because I listen to so much stuff that I have in my notes that he was an ad agency art director, and that's why he couldn't make his deadlines. But I don't remember if that was from, because I'm currently reading slash listening to A Marvelous Life, a Stan Lee biography. That's pretty good. And also read the Free Comic Book Day illustrated graphic novel, a Stan Lee graphic novel thing by what's the one of the Pittsburgh guys? I forget his name. The one that did the Fantastic Four book, Grand Design Fantastic Four. Tom Scioli.
Oh, okay.
One of those two. I don't know which. One of those two credited with saying that he is an ad agency art director. I'm gonna guess it was Tom Scioli, because that guy, he went through a lot of efforts to get his stuff right. And I want to say that he wanted to set it right for artists. He took a little bit extra pride, I think. So
Nice.
yeah, possibly he could have been a drunk and also moonlighting.
And also, yeah, could have been both.
I don't know. Like both of them sounds accurate. If I like to say, I feel like I'm a student of I love the comic book art form, and I love as much as I love reading comics, I love the history of it as well. And like two very common things of people back then is like it hasn't changed. It's not limited to back then. It's the same story now. People can't pay their bills, and people are alcoholics. People are drunks. So, like, they both fit. Like, drawing comics doesn't pay the bills, right? Like, they all had to find different ways. So, either one fits. I don't blame the guy either way.
Yeah.
So, but after reading this for this podcast, I agree with you, man. His artwork is outstanding.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's really solid. The cartooning and everything, it's definitely of its time, but the characters all are distinct. He tells a good story.
Yeah, he does. He really has a good way of bringing like a gravity to these characters. Like this is, the thing with comic book art is it's a 2D art form. We're looking at flat pictures on a flat page, so you have to have a strong talent in order to really get these the sense of space. And he really does. Like the characters, they're all different sizes. It's all really good stuff. There's like you can actually feel the movement of the characters. I think it's just on this like second page, or maybe that's the third page, where it's like introducing all these goons at Fogwell's gym, and they're sitting around this table, they're playing poker or whatever, and one of the characters is like jingling his change. It's a very small panel, but he's like jingling his change, and you get the feeling that he's doing, right close to his face and everything, and the coins have weight to them, like the way they're falling and stuff. Like it looks like how they would fall in real life. Like there's an actual gravity to all of these things that he draws. But yeah, the way that he draws the characters, each individual character on these pages has a very distinct look. There's the one, dude with like the broken nose and the cauliflower ear, because clearly he's been in a lot of fights. They've all got like they've all just got these ugly mugs. They've got cigarettes and suspenders and like all kinds of stuff. That's all this detail that he puts into, and it's not to slight the next few guys that we'll talk about over the course of the next few episodes. But yeah, going back through and like rereading this first issue, it's like even compared to all the other Marvel number ones, or even just like the character introductions, like Tales of Suspense 39 and all that stuff. Like the artwork in this issue is like it's better than Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Fantastic Four number 1 and X-Men number 1. Like, and I don't feel ashamed to say that. Like I think that this Bill Everett art is beyond Ditko and I'm drawing a blank on his name, the King, Kirby. Like
Kirby.
how am I
Yeah.
forgetting his name? But like Everett's art right here is just it blows it all away.
So an interesting snippet sidebar. Fantastic Four number 1, according to it's new to me that Marvelous Life book. There's speculation that they didn't that Stan and Jack did not take the Fantastic Four seriously, and was it Archie Goodwin maybe?
Mm.
He wanted the book to go out like, hey, I need a book to go out like DC's book, right? And they were like that month, I forget, there was another book or two that already came out, like one of those, not Tales of Suspense, but like Tales to Astonish or something, where the both of them were working on it already. and they talk like our aficionados or whatever can see the shortcuts that Stan took that he didn't normally take, like drawing out the book, and the inconsistencies in the writing with things. So yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. Like yeah, it doesn't. It's much better than those, and in that book in particular, that could be a reason why.
Hmm.
Because they didn't take too much pride in that book. And there's even stuff if you read like what Stan says about the book, like he kind of talked it down, even in the first issue, and I think in the second issue or whatever in the letter pages. I think it was the second or third issue they had letters from people that were dismissive of the first issue too, like talking smack and like why would you print that? Why would you print a negative letter? But they didn't like the book. They didn't care about it. I guess.
Wow.
I don't know. Makes sense. It's a good story.
Wow.
It's tough to say when nobody's around then, and the people that are around from then or that were up until recently just told the stories that they wanted to, like told it in a way that made them look better, right?
Oh yeah.
Tough to know the truth.
Yeah, there's a lot of ego. I'm sure it still exists in the industry today, you know.
Yeah.
But you hear about these guys that are all credited as, you know, co-creators and stuff, and every time they give an interview, they're like, "Oh, well, that part was my idea. You know, the good part, that was my stuff. That was what I contributed to the book." You know,
Yeah.
like you go back and listen to all the Silver Age creators and stuff when they were talking about their heyday and everything, and yeah, they always kind of play up their role in creating these books that 30, 40 years later are, you know, these fan favorite books that people have loved for decades, and they're like, oh yeah, that was, you know, we knew it was going to be big and we had these ideas, and you know, oh yeah, that was my Galactus thing. I just thought, oh, you know, like you hear those guys talk, it's good stuff. I like to listen uh and read interviews and stuff from like all those Silver Age guys.
Yeah. Yeah. There's good stuff there, right? So yeah, we talked about that, but the story, the way they move this story, you get the first few pages, you get Daredevil in action, and then you flash back to he beats up the guys and stuff. Then you get a flashback to Matt as a young child with his dad battling Murdoch, not battling Jack, but battling Murdoch. The year is 1950. They say, and they go through some stuff with the with Matt getting teased a little bit. Some kids call him some kids a little foreshadowing. The kids refer to him as Daredevil uh, because it's it's a nickname to tease him because all he does is study. He's such a daredevil studying his books, right?
Yeah,
Um,
he makes a like a deal with his dad to not fight because his dad, like you mentioned, battling Murdoch. He's a boxer and he's a fairly washed up boxer even at this point. And yeah, he doesn't want that same life for Matt, you know, always struggling and all that sort of stuff. So he makes Matt promise him that he'll always study and he won't fight. And so it kind of turns him into a bit of a sissy, I guess. And so they naturally the other kids tease him, call him Daredevil.
yeah, yeah. Until one day when his dad, in desperation, he makes a final decision. He aligns himself with the Fixer, which he swore he'd never do. Right. Um, after that, we get that truck. If you guys don't know the origin, we get Matt's walking down the street, and we get a truck barreling, an Ajax Atomic Labs radioactive materials truck, just barreling down the road, and there's a blind man walking out in front of it, and Matt, the child hero, drops his school books and jumps out and pushes the blind man out of the way. And we got onlookers saying it's the most heroic act we've ever seen. A cylinder fell from the truck. It struck his face. Is it something radioactive? Dun dun dun.
I mean, it's coming from a radioactive materials truck. I would assume that it is.
Yeah, yeah. It's a of its time, right? Everything was radioactive. I don't know.
Everything with Stan was radioactive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
hmm Everything Marvel was radioactive.
It's
DC still had some good origins in the Silver Age that were, magical or mystical or alien and all that.
yeah.
Not all of it was radioactive.
No, no. It's tough. It's tough. Me and you we're young and we're old enough to remember being young and not remember a time. At least I can remember a time before Google, right? Remember a time before the internet and stuff. So like how much, and even then there was like information overload with satellite dishes and 200 channels and stuff, and uh, readily accessible libraries and encyclopedias, whatever you had at your hand. I don't know what I mean. What could they have had at this time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What could your average person have had at this time? Like that was the hot thing, right? Um, like now, it's probably in comparison to nowadays where everything is either like AI or
Mhm.
like a backwards like I don't know, apocalypse stuff or something, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. A
Yeah,
lot of origins nowadays are technological feats that go wrong or whatever.
yeah, yeah. So Matt heals up. He's blind. He's uh he's knocking the speed bag and pommel horse, and he's got heightened senses. His his hearing his hearing is so acute that he can tell if someone is in a room with me just by hearing their heartbeats. Um, he never forgets an odor once he smells it. Everything, all of his senses except for his eyes, right? Of course. He's got a radar sense that they establish. So like they move it along. They're not wasting any time.
Yeah, I like that we get like one panel for each ability. I feel like nowadays writers would take 3 or 4 pages of like big drawn out decompressed
Yes.
action sequences, and they're like, no, we're gonna just get all of this out of the way. We're gonna put all of it on just one page, get through all of it. We're gonna have small panels, get over it, and get right back. So yeah, we again. He's Matt's, I guess, like at a new. It seems like he's in like in a newsroom or something.
Yeah.
And he gets a phone call and everything, and like he already knows what's happening. And then we skip forward, while Matt's here at college, kicking butt and everything, getting ready to graduate and all that. Then his dad's been fighting up the ranks ever since aligning with the Fixer. We see that Battling Jack has won match after match after match. He now goes by Kid Murdoch because it's a joke because he's an old man, but he fights like he's still a young kid and all that. And at this point, we're actually introduced to Matt's college roommate and best friend, Foggy Nelson, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's Fog. He's running up. He's holding the paper. He's like, "Hey, Matt, your dad's fighting."
Yeah. 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 That's cool. Yeah, it's a nice that's a nice page there. Uh, Afterwards we get the boxing match, and man, I feel like I'm failing us because I wish I had the top down perspective because there's a couple of beautiful panels here. I especially love the one where he's won. Like I love that panel. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That angle and stuff, like he spent some time on that. That's a nice looking one. Um, yeah, he wins, and he wins within 5 panels. He's dead. He's shot down, murdered in the alley because he was supposed to throw the fight. He wasn't supposed to win.
Yep.
Um, right? Did you already cover? I don't know if we covered that. Maybe we did. I'm sure the audience already knew, especially since he aligned with the fixer, right?
Yep.
But there's some good panel like that. Man, that's some good artwork here. I mean, he is just laying in bed. I love the next one. The all of us. Man, he's dead. The dad goes from winning, dying, Matt's sad and sleeping in bed, graduated, new office, Karen Page. Within what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Two
10.
pages,
The,
man.
the 10th panel. 10 panels. Panel 1, arms raised, 1, and all that stuff. Dead, sad, graduated, new law office, Karen Page. Man, that's some fast storytelling, and that I can't believe he fit that gigantic head of hair in that one little panel. The smallest, the smallest panel on the page has the biggest hair. It's insane, and he still fit like 3 characters in that panel, and all of Stan's words.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
It's no mean feat. It's also worth noting here that like Foggy Nelson is actually drawn as like a relatively fit dude. So I'll be curious to see kind of when he gets the reputation of being like the more rotund Foggy that I think everyone seems to know. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, it's Matt Murdock and his chubby friend Foggy. But other than like a little bit of a double chin, like we don't really get a whole lot. He's just drawn as like a relatively fit guy. His jacket here fits. I don't know. It's just something that stood out to me. Like reading the first 10 issues is like this isn't the Foggy that like if they weren't calling him Foggy, I don't know if I would have realized that was Foggy. Especially like having read Guardian Devil is like the first Daredevil story that I read, because Quesada really didn't shy away from uh, Foggy's physique, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, we get a. I like. I remember this after reading the next issues and stuff. They look their ages too. They look good. They look young, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like especially Foggy. Like he's got like a baby face. They are young adults. They look like fresh college graduates, especially since like the Crypt Keeper is giving them their diploma there too, right? Flesh colored Crypt Keeper. Um, yeah. So after that, uh, we have um we have Matt. This is where like his uh perfect, what did I say, the perfect humanity comes in. The very next page is where he says, I can't break that promise I made, and yet with agility, my extra sharp senses, there's so much I could do. I can't let all my powers go to waste. Wait, I have it. I'll see to it that Matt Murdock never does resort to force, but somebody else will. So like that, to me, like that's like that's what we all do as humans, right? Like we're always justifying stuff to ourselves. Like I mean, at the very least, I earned this cookie today. Like I got out of bed. I could get that Pop Tart.
Oh yeah, I
Whatever.
do that.
Yes.
I've got a Mountain Dew Code Red addiction, and
Yeah.
we have like a CVS that's like 2 miles from the house. So I'm like,
Nice.
well, if I walk there, that's totally fun. Like I can grab one and drink it and not have to feel
Yeah.
guilty because I walked there, and then I
Yeah.
walked. That's like 4 miles round trip. Like that's I earned
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like, and I, it, I love that. Like that makes sense to me. Like and that's maybe, it's stuff like that where I feel like I could identify, like I could a deeper like identification, and I think everybody does. Like whether you could put your fingers on it or not, you know, or recognize it. Like that's what they build into these characters, where it's not so much, it's not Daredevil as much as it is Matt Murdock, right? He's the character.
Yeah, and it's more relatable than the Peter Parker with great power comes great responsibility, right? Like that's a great thing to live by, and no one hardly ever does. Like people don't hold themselves to that. And so it's admirable, but it's not really relatable. Like most of us as species, if given the choice to do like the easy thing or the right thing,
Yeah,
like 8 out of 10 times we're taking the easy road and not the hard road. Um, so it's admirable, but like you can't relate to Peter Parker's mission or whatever. But this one, it's like he wants justice for his dad. He wants to fight crime. And he's like you said, he's trying to find a way to justify that to himself. He's coming up with excuses and he's finding loopholes to do what he wants.
yeah,
What he really wants to do is go beat the crap out of criminals. And he's trying to find a way to justify it, to rationalize it. And like that's what a normal person would do. Like Peter fights
yeah.
because he feels that he has to, whereas Matt's like, I really want to fight, and I'm gonna come up with a reason that's gonna let me do that.
Peter like he messed up. He was lazy, whatever it was, and like his uncle paid the price for it. So like that's in itself, like that's unrelatable, right? Like the Matt's dad Matt's dad dies providing for his family. Like I don't know. Like I mean, I don't know how many people's you know, like my dad wasn't gunned down or anything, right? But if your dad passes, I think that's like you feel like an obligation to try to live up to something, right? You're trying to always like make that person proud or whatever. And here he's got a promise that he made, and he doesn't want to break that promise, right? So yeah, he's like justifying that to himself. Like he made a promise. How can I keep this promise but also break it? Like how can I keep this promise but do what I want? Like I want to honor my everything, right? I mean, it's man, yeah, it hits home. Like, you know, whether whoever you make a promise to, your dad, yourself, anybody, it's the slightest thing, right? Yeah, you
Yeah,
justify it. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's super superhuman.
yeah. And so yeah, he comes up with this plan. He finally figures out a way to justify doing what he wants to do, beat up criminals. And he's like, well, Matt Murdock can't go out there and throw punches, so if I put on a costume and become someone who's not Matt Murdock anymore, then like I could do whatever the heck I want. And he sews together the worst superhero costume in Marvel history, and like that's including all of Kitty Pryde's various costume ideas throughout her early years. I just like it, on the one hand, Kurt, I really like the yellow and red costume. It's like there's nostalgia there, and it's like it's silly, but it's really bad. It's a really bad costume. It's so
Yeah,
dumb.
yeah.
Uh, but
He,
he's blind, right?
I was
So
just gonna.
not
He
gonna
is
hold it
blind.
against him.
He in all four of those panels where he goes through his senses, he never talks about like being able to differentiate color.
Hmm. Yeah, like it
Like,
was like, oh, this is yellow cloth. I can tell. Like it feels
yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so yeah, he sews this costume together. I think at one point he mentions, oh no, here we go, right there. I am no Betsy Ross, but I should be able to handle this. Lucky my touch is so sensitive. I can even blend the colors for each colored fabric has a different feel to me.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. I
Cool.
guess we did. I stand
So he
corrected.
chose yellow then. He
I
he
stand corrected.
he made the decision to put yellow and red together.
Yeah, yeah. If mustard and ketchup they go together on a sandwich, I guess they can go together on a costume. Yeah, I don't know. It's a rough one. I the costume's rough. I especially like the hinge he adds to his cane down at the bottom. He comes up with uh, he doesn't need to carry his cane, but it's going to make a great weapon for Daredevil. He just needs to put a hinge on it. Yeah, yeah, it's funny. It's good. Like it's groundwork, right?
Yeah, and I like that all of a page and a half is what we get for him
Yes.
making
Yeah.
his costume, and he makes his costume, he does the hinge, and then we get a panel of him like testing it out where he can throw it. He can use it to like vault himself. He can use it to grab something, hook something with
Yeah.
it. Like I said, he can throw it and everything. He can bash with it, and it serves as his cane as Matt Murdock as well. And after this, like once he's got his costume, he doesn't waste any time. He immediately walks to Fogwell's gym, puts his costume on, I guess, on the doorstep of the gym, and then walks inside, and starts looking for the fixer. He's like, "Hey, I'm here to find the fixer so I could beat the living crap out of him." I'm not going to tell you why, but where is he at and all that. And so they don't want to tell him where the fixer is, and so he knocks their blocks off with his cane and everything. And I think he is able. So it's been a minute since I actually read it, and I think he is about to actually find the fixer, right? But someone like pushes him out of a window.
Yeah. Yeah. Pushes old Matt out of the window. He finds one of the trusty flagpoles that will come to see. Saves the day a lot. Um, and and swings his way back in. And once that happens, we jump across the town, catch up with old Foggy and Karen, and we get a little bit of story between the two of them. We'll uh, we'll get back to Daredevil fighting again, um, and it just it goes on. He gets the rug. Daredevil gets the rug pulled out from under him. It's
Quite literally has it pulled out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, the fixer gets away. He traces them down with the smell of his cigar smoke. Like this is old timey. They're wearing those hat. I don't know what kind of hats those are. They're not fedoras, but they're uh I don't know what they are. Something like an old timey hat.
Mhm.
uh, uh, Finds them. They get down to the subway. He uses his cane to trip them up. He does some barrel rolling. Daredevil, like the trash can runs through it. The fixer um, ends up having a heart attack. He has a heart attack and dies, I believe, there, right?
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
says, "My
Oh,
heart can't breathe." Oh, and just collapses.
yes. And Daredevil, his no pulse, no heartbeat. Seems like a heart attack will save the state the expense of a trial.
And the good guys win.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, he's a logical thinker, that Matt Murdock, that DD. Um, the police are there. He catches one of the fixer's henchmen, hands him over to the police, saves the day. Uh, Matt comes back to the office where Foggy's like, "Hey, where you at? Where you been? We've been worried about you." Um, and they BS a little bit, and then the final panel, we got Matt like a very nice stoic pose, looking out the window, and we got this big nice shadow of Daredevil on the wall. That's another neat panel there, and we got Stan. Don't waste a minute. We can't wait to hear what you think of Daredevil. Send your letters to Daredevil, care of Stan Lee. and we got the rest of it there, the address and everything else. We're pushing issue 2 where he faces his first supervillain. So yeah, not his first original supervillain, but just his first supervillain. Yeah, it's not a.
Yeah.
I feel we're kind of teasing and making fun of it a little bit, but it's a good issue. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a 60s comic, right? So it's not going to be as serious as today's comics that you can find. There's going to be silly aspects and leaps in logic, that sort of stuff. That's just how things were in the 60s. Even the best comics of that era, a lot of like Flash, for example, like
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Silver Age Flash, like 50s and 60s Flash is probably my favorite title of that decade and a half. I don't think anything comes as close to being as good as the Flash was back then. Um, but even the best comics, even the Flash had a lot of cheesy stuff, a lot of silly stuff, a lot of real big leaps. There's a whole lot of suspension of disbelief that's needed, and there's a reason why they're called funny books. There's humor and there's levity in some of these things, and a lot of stuff gets explained through really clunky dialogue or thought bubbles and stuff like that, things that aren't really conveyed in the story. They're just told to the readers, like, "Oh, I love this person." And you're like, "All right, cool. That guy loves that girl right there. Okay, whatever." Um, but even despite all of that stuff that you would get in that era, like this is a solid comic. It's a really exciting story. It's a very compelling character, a very compelling origin. We get to see both Matt Murdock and Daredevil in action right away. We're introduced to some supporting cast members that are major characters for decades as this book goes through its various runs. Yeah, like all things considered, like this is a very good comic book.
Yeah. Yeah. It does a lot in its first issue. Yeah, it's very good. Um, yeah, if anybody's listening to this and hasn't read that, I'd encourage them to pick it up. It's not bad. Uh, I guess that brings us to the end of our first episode. The end of the first issue just happens to be the end of our first episode. Coincidence? I think not. um, uh, I don't have anything else to add about that. Do you have anything? Is there's nothing we've missed, right?
For the issue or for the episode?
For the issue, for the episode. Final
No, I think it's
thoughts?
a pretty solid start. Yeah, I'm looking forward to more. Um, I know that in the next few issues, we're going to start getting introduced to some pretty well-known Daredevil mainstays as far as like his villain side. So I'm looking forward to getting into those again. But yeah, again, like as far as first issues go, this is a really great start, and I'm looking forward to more. It's too bad that this is the end of the Bill Everett era of
Yeah,
Daredevil after one issue because his artwork is excellent.
yeah,
But again, it's not to slight the guys that we'll be talking about in our next few episodes,
no,
because there are there's a handful of guys that I think do a really great job with the character as well. But yeah, it's a shame that we don't get more Bill Everett after this.
it is to slight Joe Orlando and Wally Wood. I'm calling them out. Every kicked their butts, man. He did a really good job. Uh so with that, oh my god, I was shaking my camera. Uh you could, if anybody, praise, no praise, tell me I suck, whatever you want to do, say something. We're at castwithoutfear@gmail.com. Leave something in the comments. If somebody comments on this video, I will like it because I think that's what everybody does. I I read all the comments. I could assure you. I guess that's it, man. That's signing off. if you're interested in finding me elsewhere, good luck, because I'm nowhere else. Uh, I could be on Ryan's podcast. I'm there from time to time. That's how we have met and become friends. Um, and that podcast again is
Talkin Snikt, the Wolverine show. I failed to mention at the beginning of the episode when I was plugging it. It is a. I'd be lying if I said it was a weekly podcast, but it's a podcast all about Wolverine. I've got like 100 episodes of just Wolverine content on there, but I've done other stuff. There's a sister show that I do on that same podcast feed called Saturday Morning Snicktoons, where myself and a guest, sometimes Kurt, sometimes other people, we watch and break down an episode of X-Men the Animated Series and just talk X-Men fandom, sometimes Marvel fandom. We've talked all kinds of stuff. I've had conversations with various guests about Lego, about Magic the Gathering, about baseball. I've had all kinds of conversations on there. So it's not always X-Men only, but it's pretty much X-Men only. So again, it's Talkin Snikt the Wolverine show, lots of Wolverine stuff, lots of X-Men the Animated Series stuff. I've done other like monthly topics as well. I did Nightcrawler, the 1985 miniseries from Dave Cockrum, and I covered the 1990s Peter David run of X Factor. I'm not going to make any promises about future content, but I'm kind of working on a second Talkin' Bamf series covering the cross time caper of Excalibur. So we'll see if that ever comes to light. But yeah, it's there's like 100. I think I have like 174 total episodes of X-Men and other kind of content on Talkin Snikt the Wolverine show. So it's an audio only podcast, and you can pretty much find it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
yeah. I wholeheartedly endorse that. I've listened to all of them. I really enjoyed that podcast. We had one special episode that he did not that Ryan failed to mention, and that was the Christmas episode. That had I think it had nothing to do with comics. It was just Christmas movies. I think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we tied it into X-Men, but yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
were just
Yeah.
talking,
Yeah.
Christmas movies. It
We
came
had
out
some.
December of last year. It was a
Yeah.
fun episode.
Yeah. We had some. There's definitely some really good content there. It's listening to the Wolverine stuff has pushed me to read some of the Wolverine issues that I have and never read.
All right.
So, yes. All right, but that's enough. That's all I've got for you today. If somebody can tell me where I took that line from, I will um, like it, I guess. All right. Yeah, that's a tough one. All right. That's it. I'm done rambling. I'm cutting it off here. Thank you, Ryan, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.